All right. Good evening, Facebook. How is everyone doing tonight? I am so excited to be on here with y'all. My name is Bernice, and I am the Regional Director with For Our Future Florida here in the Tampa Bay area. And I want to take a second to introduce the incredible folks that are on this call. So first we have, I'll start with CLEO because I see your logo first. So first we have Mary Liz from CLEO. How are you doing tonight, Mary Liz?
I'm great, Bernice. Hi, everyone. Like Bernice said, my name is Mary Liz. My pronouns are she, her. I am an organizer here in the Tampa Bay area with the CLEO Institute, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to climate education, engagement, and advocacy. So I'm really excited to be on this panel with you all tonight, and I'll pass it off to Chispa.
Hi everyone, my name is Crisia Lopez Arce. I'm the Communications Manager of Chispa, Florida. We're a new program of FCB voters here in Florida, and we work for environmental justice and climate justice for Latinx communities around the state. We are also in another states of the United States, like Arizona, Nevada. But here we're like fighting for access to clean air, water, and of course, to preserve the conservation of the land. So thank you so much for having me here. And I pass it to Brooke.
Well, hey there, everybody. My name is Brooke Arrett. I'm with Food and Water Watch. I'm our senior organizer here in the state of Florida. My pronouns are she, her, hers, but you can call me anything with love. Food and Water Watch works to protect our food, water, and climate by organizing people around the country and here in Florida to build political power. And so we mobilize to win fights that a lot of groups, are, and not these groups included, but are afraid to take on. This is a group of bold activists. But the big thing that we fight about is corporations that are putting profits over people. And we believe that people have the power to make real change. I will pass it over to Monica.
Hi, everybody. My name is Monica Petrella. My pronouns are she, her. I don't have my logo on this page, unfortunately, but I organize with the Tampa Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA. I am the co-chair of the Eco-Socialist Working Group. And with the DSA, we believe in a future in which everyone's basic needs are provided for and, basic essential things are decommodified. And so, we like to see a Green New Deal. We think that the American Jobs Plan is a relatively good basis to that. But ultimately, our fight is fighting for a world where decommodification of basic needs is provided for us. So thank you so much for having us. And I will lastly pass it over to Ms. Sonia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Sonja Brookins, and I'm the Hillsborough County Soil and Water Conservation Supervisor. And even though we fight for conservation rights, I have a personal platform to build partnerships with these young ladies and other groups to bring awareness to environmental justice and climate justice so that our marginalized communities are not neglected of their human rights. And I'm very glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, and just really appreciate y'all being on here tonight. And before we jump into the meat of the content, we want to ask you guys to take a second to email Rick Scott and Marco Rubio. We can't let these two be the roadblock to disaster relief and green jobs. So we're asking folks to email them and let them know that we want green jobs. The link will be in the comments. All right, y'all. Now here we're planning to talk about disaster resiliency. From 2010 to 2020, Florida experienced 22 extreme weather events, which cost the state up to $100 billion in damages. So President Biden's plan will improve the resiliency of our infrastructure and save taxpayer money. One of the things I wanted to talk about is how this disproportionately impacts Brown and Black folks. And I know I'd love to hear, especially from Chrisia and from Dr. Brookins on this, Chrisia, if you don't mind sharing with us a little bit about your story of being a climate refugee.
Yes, of course. So I moved here after Hurricane Maria, and with this plan, of course, for me, it's a priority what is happening here in Florida, but also how this plan will impact Puerto Rico, because at this point, everyone in the island is still living with lack of access to power and water. And I know that this plan will bring like change in the infrastructure and different jobs, and I would like to see that in Puerto Rico because people at the island need it. Like right now, there's a lot of people at the island without power, right? So that is something that it's happened before, during, and after the hurricane. So yeah, and with the earthquakes and all that stuff, right, that is still going on over there. I really want to see how this plan will improve the island, and of course the people that move here to Florida, because when we moved here, we came here like nomads, but we are a lot of people at the same time, and sometimes it's like, whoa, there's not a lot of jobs here to bring some faith to these people, right? So yeah, for me, it's like, it's what is going to happen there, but also what is going to happen here when, unfortunately, disasters are coming. And yeah, how here we're going to to help the people with this plan. So
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Chrisia. And what comes up for you, Dr. Brookins, when you think about racial justice and disaster resiliency?
Well, when I read through this plan, the American Job Plan, I got excited because to me this is a good way to rebuild a new economy, and it is an investment back into those communities that have been neglected for so long. I think this is a good way to address the environmental justice piece as well as the climate justice piece, because here in Florida, look at the humidity that we're suffering right now, and think about those families that can't even afford to have an AC unit in their homes, and they're experiencing all types of illnesses. Their asthma has increased because they're breathing this hot humidity, and it's very difficult for them. So I think this plan will be a good start to modernizing some of these areas that need to be modernized, and unifying the communities between the Black and Brown, and bringing everybody on board to make a change towards this climate crisis and this environmental justice. And I think it'll really put us on the map where we need to be put.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Brookins. So next, we're going to take a couple minutes to talk about some of the components of the American Jobs Plan. So one component is the priority to safeguard critical infrastructure. So people of color and low-income folks are most likely to live in areas that are vulnerable to flooding and other climate change-related weather events. So part of President Biden's plan actually increases resiliency in most essential services. So we're talking about the electric grid, food systems, urban infrastructure, community health and hospitals, and transportation as well. So just curious to hear from folks who are on right now. What do y'all think about this investment in critical infrastructure and what it could mean for people of color?
I'll go ahead and chime in real quick. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so with the DSA's Green New Deal, one of our demands is a Green New Deal for transportation, and that calls for an immense investment into public transit options and, just enabling cities to, make sure that people are trying to reduce single occupancy trips and starting to use more alternatives of mass transportation. A lot of times we talk about how the answer to capitalism isn't green capitalism. And so just if we have 3 million people in Tampa or Hillsborough driving their single occupancy vehicles, yes, electric vehicles are better, but no, that's not solving the answer. We'll still have 3 million people in their individual cars. So investments in mass transit, free mass transit, that should be, provided as a basic service. So that's one of our demands in the Green New Deal. And, obviously hearing this in the American Jobs Plan is great. It's very hopeful. Additionally, a lot of times public transportation have the strongest unions, and there's a pretty good union density there. And so we want to see more unions throughout these green jobs in order to make sure that they are paid livable wages and that they are dignified as well. So this kind of investment is exactly the kind of things that we're looking for, and it's pretty hopeful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monica. So I'm going to move us to our next topic, which is housing. Mary Liz, I know you're going to talk to us about housing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So many of us know that there's, huge shortage in affordable housing options. Specifically in Florida, there's a shortage of over 344,000 affordable homes for lower income Floridians. COVID-19 has really accelerated this unaffordability. And also, I'm sure many of us on the call have experienced, millions of families pay more than half their rent or more than half their income on rent, or, young people and many families aren't able to become homeowners because of the unaffordability, the housing market and housing options these days. The American Jobs Plan is supposed to invest $213 billion to develop and retrofit more than 2 million affordable housing options, which I think is wonderful. And just to give you a little bit of insight into Florida's housing crisis, affordable housing has consistently been defunded over the past 20 years through our Florida legislature. And so there was a mechanism in place to counteract this called the Sadowski Trust Fund, which is just a funding source that was originally intended to help finance public housing projects and prevent evictions and things of that nature. But now more than 2/3 of the affordable housing funding will be reallocated permanently to resiliency projects and stormwater/wastewater management projects. So obviously this is really not equitable. The resiliency funding should come from a different source. And now it's kind of, we're at this point where we're kind of competing for funding, and it shouldn't be like that, because we can't have climate justice without housing justice. It kind of goes hand in hand. And we definitely don't want to be taking away funding from people who are marginalized and at risk of being unhoused, because when we're unhoused, how are we supposed to be prepared in the event of a disaster? So I think Maria was supposed to also add a comment, but that's all I have for this slide. So
awesome. Thanks so much, Mary Liz. Next, I want to talk about the energy burden. And I know this section is all Brooke, so I'm going to hand it over.
Thanks a lot, Bernice. So I'm going to talk a little deeper dive about some points that Mary Liz touched on, which is that energy burden, which is the percentage of a given household's income that's dedicated for paying for their energy. That's including heating, cooling, household electricity. And a household's energy burden increases as their income decreases. That's right. So people who make less money pay more for their energy than people who make more money. And that has just been the pattern across the board. So we find that low-income families face disproportionately high energy burden rates and an excessive energy burden next to as compared to their wealthier counterparts. In fact, some household energy bills are so unaffordable that a household goes into energy poverty. And that's when an electricity bill exceeds 6% of, or the total energy bills exceed 10% of the household's income. And this can lead to some really difficult trade-offs for families, like around essential things like household goods, food, rent, clothing, medicine, things that should be human rights to have. The energy companies have been able to price people out of making those choices. The national average energy burden for low-income households is 8.6%. That is 3 times higher than those for non-low-income households. And in the state of Florida, the average electricity burden for the entire state is 3.86%, which is way higher than the national average. So we are really picking up the weight here in Florida. Nationally, it's 2.5, and here in Florida, we're almost hitting 4%. And that's an average. So it's leveling out between those who carry a heavier burden and those who don't. In fact, in the state, there are over 1.5 million households that live in energy poverty, which means that they are not able to afford their energy bills and have to make those tough decisions. And this burden's getting even worse as we're having more severe weather and extreme heat. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, the people most impacted by the energy burden are low income and working Floridians. Black, Latinx, and Indigenous households, renters, older people, those residing in multifamily buildings, all face disproportionately higher burdens. And that's really because they have less access to weatherization and energy efficiency. Plus, a lot of the people live in urban heat islands, which are the areas in a metropolitan space that are a lot warmer than the areas surrounding it. And a recent study found that urban heat islands expose Black Americans in US cities to twice as much additional warming during the summer as compared to whites. And that's in the US as a whole. We know how our Florida summers are here, and we are having excessive heat, extreme heat days, so it's getting worse. In fact, Black residents endured temperatures soaring more than 3 degrees Celsius above surrounding non-urban areas. So what does that mean? You've got these excessive energy bills, you're in energy poverty. That means you go without food, you go without medicine, you go without insurance, you might not be able to pay your rent. It means you turn down the AC so that you're not using as much, but then you expose yourself to heat stress and poor air quality. Then there's also the technological divide, that if you're trying to cut back on energy, you might not have as much access to internet, which is necessary, especially as we learned over the past year, for work and education and things like that. And as Mary Liz said, really the heart of the matter is it makes housing and living unaffordable. So the way we can address the energy burden is by either changing how much customers consume or providing assistance to help them pay their bills after the fact. So there are 3 main categories that we can use to address the energy burden. And the affordable, or the American Jobs Plan, hits on 2 of them, so that's awesome. So the first would be just through bill assistance, so providing direct monetary support for low-income customers to pay their energy bills, which Florida does have a fund for that. But the 2 that are very important that the AJP talks about are weatherization and energy efficiency programs. So weatherization provides the infrastructure improvements to homes, which can reduce the sensitivity to the elements. So we're talking things like insulation, sealing of doors and windows, which then means your AC is not running as hard. And our AC units account for 46% of our home's energy use. So if we're able to cut down the amount of work they're doing, we can very much cut down the amount of electricity we're using. And then energy efficiency programs would focus more on that outside infrastructure, so technological upgrades to lighting systems, but then you can have it in your house through appliances and things like that, but also our power companies and the in-ground infrastructure can be upgraded as well. We recently heard, I'm sure most of us did, of this winter in Texas, how energy burden can turn into energy insecurity and a lack of stability. The reliability on fossil fuels during the energy crisis in Texas led to more than 4.5 million homes and businesses without power for several days. At least 151 people were killed directly or indirectly from that event, a fossil fuel failure. And these outages were felt disproportionately in lower income and minority ethnic zip codes. What it came down to was that it was inadequately winterized natural gas equipment that broke down. The renewables outperformed what they were expected to in those situations. Also, Texas had isolated its power grid from the two major national grids in an effort to avoid federal oversight and deregulate the energy sector, which made it really difficult for the state to import electricity from other states. That's why we need this plan to give infrastructure that's connected through the entire country. So the blackout estimates of the damages were $195 billion, and they could have stopped this. 10 years earlier, Texas knew their power plants would fail in these cold conditions, but the oil and gas industry ignored it. Because during the crisis, some of those firms made billions in profits, and they were able to charge customers, and this is not a misquote, $9,000 per megawatt hour of energy, which typically in the area was $50. So you want to talk about an even higher energy burden. This put so many residents in the state of Texas into energy poverty. But we've got hope. We have the American Jobs Plan. That's right around the corner, and it invests heavily in helping to weatherize homes, in energy infrastructure, in renewable energy, and energy efficiency. Those monies can be brought into these neighborhoods that have been left behind to reduce the amount of energy that's being used by those homes through upgrading them with weatherization and decreasing the cost of energy by not relying on fossil fuels and big oil. So one thing I do want to advocate before I pass on the torch is that the American Jobs Plan isn't perfect, but it could be. One of the things that we really are fighting for is to include an end to fossil fuel subsidies. So while fossil fuel billionaires have continued to take advantage of disasters and weather crises, and the American populace as a whole, the US, that's us, anything the US is paying is coming from us, the taxpayers, gives $15 billion in subsidies every year to the fossil fuel industry, which incentivizes the continued use of these dangerous fuels. In fact, right now, Florida utilities are currently negotiating with the Public Service Commission to hike up rates even higher in Florida than they currently are, which would also further contribute to our already high energy burden. So I hope that the American Jobs Plan passes and that it's expanded to also include the End Polluter Welfare Act. So that's $15 billion that could be reinvested into weatherizing homes, upgrading to resilient clean energy infrastructure, and increasing energy efficiency, which would ultimately reduce the energy burden for all and make just living, more affordable. So there's a petition link, if you can sign that, to ensure that ending fossil fuel subsidies is part of the AJP. And I'll throw it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Go, Brooke. Brooke kicks butt.
Brooke is amazing.
That was awesome, Brooke. This is actually my slide, I believe. Yeah. So the U.S. actually faced 22 extreme weather and climate events alone this past year, which had a cumulative cost of $95 billion in damages to homes, businesses, and public infrastructure. And as we know, people of color and marginalized communities are more likely to live in vulnerable areas and really lack the funding and aid they need to recover quickly from these disasters. And so the American Jobs Plan is supposed to invest in vulnerable communities through a variety of different programs, including FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program, HUD's Community Development Block Grant Program, new initiatives through the Department of Transportation, bipartisan tax credit to provide incentives to low and middle income families and to small businesses to really help, recover from disasters. Mm-hmm. And so, and additionally, investments in nature-based infrastructure such as mangroves and wetlands are really going to help to better manage storm surges and minimize and buffer strong winds coming from hurricanes. And so, supporting the American Jobs Plan is ultimately going to increase the resiliency of our electric grid. It's going to increase the resiliency of food systems, urban infrastructure, community health and hospitals, and our public infrastructure, our public transportation infrastructure. And I'll pass it back to Bernice.
Awesome. Thank you again, Mary Liz. This is our one of our last slides here is talking about transportation. So I want to also open the conversation up to folks on the panel. I know earlier Monica talked about transportation and the need to invest in public transportation as well. And one of the other things that the American Jobs Plan does is actually invest into the electric vehicle market. And I know maybe Crisia can tell us a little bit about the Clean Buses for Healthy Niños campaign as well.
We've been working nationally, the Clean Buses for Healthy Niños campaign. This is a grant that is available in every state. It's a grant from Volkswagen. So we are being touching base and having one-on-ones with school board members around the state to let them know that this grant is available and you can apply to this grant. Your county can have electric buses for your schools. And here I know that already Palm Beach County applied, Miami-Dade County applied, I think Orange County too. So it's happening, the school boards are applying and it's moving, but we need to still having these conversations with school board members because it's there, but a lot of them doesn't know, right? So if we're still having this conversation and educated them, we can have a better future for kids, right? In their way to school every day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Crisia. And I think that's amazing work that y'all are doing. Awesome. Okay, so I am going to move us forward. One of our last asks for you here is to sign a petition. We are also collecting petitions telling Scott and Rubio to support the American Jobs Plan. So if you have your phone, you can actually kind of take a picture of this QR code and it will lead you to that petition. And I'll leave it up for a couple seconds here just so y'all have a chance to do that. Alrighty, awesome. So before we jump off, we want to let y'all know about an event that we have coming up this Saturday. I am so excited. We are going to be canvassing, which is great post-COVID. It's nice to get out there, walk around in the community and get to know our neighbors. So we're going to be canvassing and talking to folks about the American Jobs Plan and the environmental benefits of it. So we're meeting at 11 a.m. at Rowlett Park. That's Shelter 213. And we'd love to have you join us and looking forward to it. If you have any questions, my email address is right there on the flyer. It's bernice@forourfuturefund.org.
I'll be there. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah. We'll have Brooke will be there, so we're super looking forward to meeting y'all in person.
Not because I'm going to be there. I'm just saying it's going to be a blast. Everybody should come out.
Bernice,
okay. It's awesome.
I forgot to mention something. I added to our private chat the we also have a petition to the Biden administration to, to help us with the Clean Buses for Healthy Niño campaign. And I added that to our private chat. So I think Lior can be able to add it to the.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll put it in
To
the
the chat.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I also added an EDF petition too. So hopefully Lior caught that.
Okay.
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thanks, Lior. Lior is our background magical digital director who is making all of this happen. So thank you so much, Lior. All right. Lastly, before we jump off, I just want to go around the room and ask everyone, what's the best way for folks to stay connected with you or your organization? So feel free, whoever wants to start, and pass it to the next person.
Okay, I'll go first. The best way to reach out to me as far as conservation is through the Hillsborough County Soil and Water District. There's an email, and I don't know the email. Maybe I can put it in real quick. Not the email, but the link. I'm sorry. To reach out and get involved with planting trees. We have a big event coming up this Saturday where we'll be out at planting trees. We have 20,000 seedlings that we will be doing to help contribute to the clean air. And also you can reach me at my email at sonjabrookins@gmail.com in regards to environmental justice and climate justice, because all of it is interconnected. And the one thing I'm excited about with this new plan is that the lead that's going, that the drinking water that the kids drink when they go to the water fountain, this also will change that infrastructure and change those pipes out so our kids are not drinking this and getting filled up with a bunch of garbage. Let's just face it, what it is. So thank you very much. It's great working with these women. All of them are so knowledgeable. This is great building this partnership.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Brookins. Who would like to go next?
I'll go, just because I wanted to say that I will be at the tree planting on Saturday. And so it seems like half of our group will be canvassing and maybe the other half will be planting trees, which is what we want to see. So in order to get involved with the Eco-Socialists, like I said, we are a working group of the Tampa DSA, Tampa Democratic Socialists of America. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. We actually have a general meeting tomorrow night. And so if you're interested in tuning into that, go to the Facebook and you can send a message and someone will send me the link. So yeah, we are a pretty new working group. We don't have a lot of like physical infrastructure set up yet. So the best way is just to kind of go through the Facebook. But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for having me and for letting us kind of get into this conversation. And I'm very excited to see what all comes from it. So thank you.
I'll piggyback because I want to also plug events. So half of us, so just first of all of us are members of the Tampa Bay Climate Alliance. And we work together quite frequently. So we're splitting our power on Saturday. So go to whichever event moves you. But also there's going to be an after party event too. We're going to go and help beautify an urban garden and then grab some beers. So anybody who's interested in helping out with garden beautification through the Urban Progress Alliance, we'll be meeting up there afterward in the afternoon and would love for you guys to be involved. My contact information should be in the chat. And you can best way to reach me really is call me or text me. My email box becomes a giant hole. But if you can, we also have a Facebook page that you can tap into the stuff that we're doing, and I'll pass it on.
I think I can go now. So you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram as Chispa Florida. On Facebook, we are the Chispa Florida. We also have an office right now in Kissimmee, in the downtown Kissimmee area. So we have a little casita over there. And you guys are welcome. Bernice, thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll go last. Yeah, so the CLEO Institute is on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter as CLEO Institute. And then I think we just got a TikTok. I don't know if we have any TikToks up yet, but we do have a TikTok now. And also just wanted to plug, we are hosting a climate and food policy course, certification course this summer. And we're really excited. It's going to cover a lot of different topics. We're going to have a variety of different speakers coming, and we're going to make all of the intersections between climate, food, justice, and heat-related impacts, and how we can improve our food system. So definitely keep your eye out for that if you're interested. And thanks for having me, Bernice. And I'm really honored to be here with all of you very intelligent women. This has been awesome.
Yeah, we look at this. We've got an amazing all-women panel. Woohoo! So thank you so much, everyone, for coming on. It was a really rich discussion. The best way to stay in touch with me is join our Facebook group. I'm on there all the time. And the link is on the screen for florida.us/Facebook groups. And you can also email me, Bernice, at forfuturefund.org. Awesome, everyone. Thank you so much, and hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you.